Hello, my name is Roman Dzindziashvili, and this is the DVD about tactics. Now, for years I was wondering, how do you make DVD on tactics, on combinations? Do you just show combinations? But that's no fun, because you can do that by look at combinations opening any book. Then what, explaining combinations? That makes a lot of sense. But how do you explain combinations? And how do you help someone who needs help in tactics? A lot of people asked me in past, in many years, for many years already, how do I get better in tactics? And I always had difficulties delivering this message, answering this question properly. I will try to do my best now on this DVD. Combinations, mostly one and the most popular way of learning tactics, also the easiest way. It's by pattern recognition. I mentioned it several times on previous DVDs. And what is pattern recognition exactly? Pattern recognition is when you play combination on some team. It may be attack on the king, it may be a double attack on the pieces, winning material, getting positional advantage. They repeat, they have tendency to repeat the themes, not exact positions, the themes. So once you played one combination or saw some combinations, you will recognize this appearing in your games. But now when you see the theme that you have already seen, that doesn't mean your combination is going to work. Because remember, I don't know, you guys know that most of the combinations, big majority of the possible tactical shots, they don't work. I would say almost 70% they don't work. And then you have to use your calculation ability and so on and so on. And then that's how you determine if combination works. Now, let me show you some tactics that have very good pattern and very good explanation. Well, some tactics you can explain why this was possible. And there are some tactics that are absolutely unpredictable, and they are a lot more difficult. But we will get to it in a little bit a later stage of the DVD. Well, for example, I will give you one simple thing here. Well, suppose somebody goes knight c3, queen e6 check, then you go bishop e2. Suppose they go queen f6. I'm just making it up as we go to show you. Here, you immediately can recognize, you probably went to some exercise in tactics, that move like this wins a queen because it forces queen on b5 and knight takes c7. This is a theme. This is tactics that you can explain easily and find easily in your game. But then there are different kinds of tactics that make little more sense. For example, e5, knight f3. I will show you, there are millions of examples. I cannot even get close to exhaust the possibilities of thematic combinations. But I show you some of them from my opening repertoire that I recommend. And this is going to be interesting here. Knight takes d4, bishop d7. Bishop takes c6, bc. Now we castle. Bishop c5, f3, knight g5, f4, knight e4, bishop e3, castling. And now knight d2, knight takes d2, queen takes d2, f6, queen c3, bishop b6. And suppose white goes some move like rook d1. Actually, the move has to be made is knight b3, pawn takes, and now queen e7. Here, white has two possibilities, knight c5 and bishop c5. Now this is strictly strategy. Knight c5 is a better move because bishop c5, it keeps bishop pinned, and queen and knight dedicated to protect the bishop on c5. However, bishop c5 is a playable move. Black goes this rook to e8, and white goes maybe rook f3, trying to double rooks on f5. Here is base of the tactics. If queen takes e5, that loses the game because white wins with rook f8 check. Even though bishop on c5 is pinned, it still protects white's rook that black cannot take it with a king, and now white wins the queen. But as I mentioned already, in this position, knight c5 is a better option. And after rook f to e8, we may even go b4. Now our queen is free. Now, after queen takes e5 and rook f8 check, rook on f8 is not going to be protected. But this move works anyway. This is amazing. And this is same theme of the combination repeats itself. Now, if rook takes, we just simply take the queen. And if king takes, then it's even worse. Knight takes d7 with the check, and white wins the game. So if you know this theme of back rank theme, then you can use it. That's how you recognize. Something like this happens again in your game, you will recognize. It's a lot easier to see this shot after you saw this combination. Now, let's get to some completely different opening. e4, e5. It's a central opening. It used to call queen takes d4. Of course, it's not recommended to play like this, but some players, they still like it. This was played even by Bent Larsen several times. Queen e3, knight f6, and now e5. e5 is a weak move. Black goes knight g4, and after queen e4, now black goes d5, protecting the knight. He takes d, and bishop e6. Here comes the tactical part. Well, actually, I had it in a game once, and I am going to tell you how I saw this shot immediately. So now, originally I intended to just sacrifice pawn and having big advantage in development. I was very hopeful in this position playing black. But when white took here, I saw all of a sudden this tactical shot, which is very strong. Now after king takes, knight takes f2, knight takes back, and now white has an extra pawn on c7, which black gonna have no problem winning after bishop d6, and black has much better position. Now, let me get back to this position, and I will tell you why I saw queen d1 move. And anytime you have tactical shot, you have to remember the pattern, because patterns, they pile up in your head, and eventually, sooner or later, you're going to be able to use it. Well, let me show you where. So here is the other opening: e4, c6, d4, d5, knight c3, g6, knight f3, bishop g7. It's kind of variety of modern h3, knight f6, e5, knight e4. Now, this already happened in my game, and I saw in other games. This is known shot. Knight takes e4, pawn takes e4, knight g5, attacking e4 pawn. After c5, best move for white is to take on c5. If queen a5, check bishop d2, and queen takes c5, then bishop c3. Now white is intending to take pawn on e4. And if bishop takes c5, bishop takes c5, and queen takes c5. Here is the shot. Here is the tactic that is going to work. So, person who played this queen d8 check, or not necessarily having it in your game, but if you saw it happening in somebody else's game, that makes it a lot easier to find the same shot that we saw just in a previous example. You see pattern recognition. This is by far the leading source of learning tactics. Majority of chess players, they miss a lot of tactics. And tactics, it's like main cause for changing game from winning to losing, and vice versa, the other way. So sometimes you have bad position, you are losing your down material, and then some tactical shot is going to change it. It's very, very important to be alert in all stages. Sometimes you may have bad position and you need some miracle combination like this, or your opponent may be as desperate and he is going to try something like this. In this position, it's obvious that black is totally lost, because we have same number of pawns, and while white has ideal pawn structure, black's pawn structure is absolutely terrible. So, and black's position is lost. Well, we use tactics now to get a favorable position, meaning position, big positional advantage. Let me show you another example. In same Scotch Gambit opening, here, this I already had too many times, including tournament game and even on internet. Bishop c5. We're not going to go into details. Knight takes c6 is a bad move. Bishop e3 is the best move. Now, black plays bishop d7, bishop takes c6, bc, knight d2, and the most common move and the best move is knight takes d2. And after queen e7, we're going to have another fascinating, well, fascinating not by the level of difficulties, but fascinating by the result. The result will be that white plays nice combination, getting big positional advantage. You're going to see the similarity with the previous example. For example, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, e6. Attacking the bishop, of course this e pawn has to be taken. Black cannot take the knight on d4 because white has in between. He takes the check and winning both bishops. So, and taking with a bishop amazingly losing a piece. I showed it a couple of times in my previous DVDs. This now, white simply wins by knight takes e6. Queen cannot take because bishop is unfree, and pawn cannot take because queen check and winning the bishop on c5, and black cannot take bishop on e3 because knight takes g7 and knight f5 simply wins a piece. Even bishop takes f2 is not going to help. And when you give check, hoping to pick up the knight, then knight e3, and white simply wins. So after e6, only move is pawn takes e6. And here's the combination: knight takes c6, bishop takes c6, queen h5, getting the bishop back and having big positional advantage. Even though the bishops are opposite colors, white king will go to e3. White has very big structural advantage. e3 will be met by f3, and e3 pawn is lost. We don't want to take on e3 and give on g2. So black has bad game. So tactics can be used for having mating attack, and you have seen, I'm sure, if you've been playing chess for more than a week, you already seen enough combinations to know that. So for mating attacks, for winning materials, I showed you several examples where tactics used primarily for getting big positional advantage. Now I'm going to show you very, very interesting pattern, interesting game where there were several tactical shots, one after another, but they are all belong to some pattern to that. Well, let's see the game. The game was played in Poland between two relatively good masters, and started with very quiet, maybe even boring opening. Knight f3, d5, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, bishop f5, d3, c6, very well-known system. After c6, knight bd2, h6, preparing bishop for bishop possible retreat to h7, castling, e6, queen e1, preparing e4. Well, since it's a DVD in tactics, I want to point to you that white must play queen e1 if they want to go e4. Rook e1 is not as good because bishop e7, and after e4, white simply loses a pawn. You see, because now if knight takes, black simply wins a pawn, and white has no compensation. So that's why queen e1 was played. And after queen e1, game went bishop e7, e4, bishop h7, knight e5, castling, f4. Now, I'm not big fan of this kind of play for white, because now while developing they're going to have some problems with the e4 pawn, and they are overexposed in the center. So after f4, a5, king h1, queen c7, a3, very quiet opening, a4, now white goes g4. They have intention maybe queen g3 and go g5, some chances for attack. Bishop d6, queen g3, now b5. And position is very quiet, as I told you. But after b3, black has decisive advantage. And now you're going to see some tactics. But this tactic is easier to find. Every move that black makes has logical explanation. Tactics don't always have logical explanation. This one does. So if you have something like this, you can find it by simple logical thinking. A takes B. This move is good because if nothing else, it's good for pawn structure. You're exchanging your rook pawns, open rook file for central pawn. Practically you're exchanging A pawn for C pawn. And now black plays bishop b4. Well, of course bishop is immune because rook is hanging on a1. But mainly this move is very strong move because simply puts a lot of pressure on white's e4 pawn. Black is threatening to take the knight that protects on e4, and white has to do something. White has to support this e pawn. They don't want to go rook e1 and pin their own knight. And taking is not very appealing option because even after knight takes d5, white has no play. White has very bad position. So queen e3 was played. Now this is unnatural move, and this is the cause for very quickly cause for a lot of trouble. Bishop c3, rook a2, bishop takes e5, and there goes the pawn. Now black has an extra pawn, white has absolutely no compensation. And next move, bishop b2, is allowing more tactics. Queen takes h2. You see? Same. Queen takes h2 and knight takes g4. And now black has two extra pawns, and there is no need to analyze this game any further. Well, now this tactics, let me analyze it a little bit. Bishop b4 is a common thing. You attack the piece that protects the key square on the board. And bishop b4 is possible because black has an open a file. And after this, black has already an extra pawn in better position. And now queen takes h2. Now, second tactical shot will be explained also. That's why experienced players, they see tactics much better, because if you're experienced, experience means you played a lot more games. And if you played a lot more games, you have had a lot more tactical possibilities. And now this wins. Now let me show you something. I saw this queen takes h2 coming. It wasn't my game, but when I looked at the game, here is one position of another opening that I developed, accelerated Draco. And you may say, what's the connection between those two games? When you see something like this, knight c3, bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6, queen d2. That's not a good variation for white, but let's look at it. After castle, I had this in my games. bc, bishop h6. Then I play bishop takes h6, queen takes h6, and I go queen b6, attacking b2. Now my opponent didn't want a castle because he loses the pawn on f2, but he played rook b1. And you see, the way we saw queen takes h2 and knight g4, in the previous example, exactly same way, queen takes h2. It's not h2, it's f2, but same pattern, and knight g4, fork. So, and once you have had it several times, you recognize it quickly. And there is pattern recognition, worked again. And more. Well, this is also Sicilian. This is different. Different variation. Well, here is knight c6, knight c3, queen c7, and, well, either queen c7 or maybe even bishop c5, knight takes c6, bc, and white goes queen g4. That's not a good idea. That's a bad way to play for white, because knight f6, queen takes g7, rook g8, queen h6, and here we go again. Same tactical shot. So, what am I trying to say here? Why am I showing you this exact tactical shots? Chances are that this exact position will never happen in your life. But when you look or analyze the game, this position will not happen maybe. But pattern, you have to pay close attention. Even if it's not your game, games that you analyze. Well, these shots like this, check and bishop takes f2 and knight g4, you may not see as much in top grandmasters games, because most of the time these simple tactical shots, they go, they bypass it. They see it miles away and they bypass it. But when you see games on your level or even higher level, even masters, even, IMs, this constantly happens. So when you look at it, don't just go by and forget it. You can make a note in your head, oh, this is interesting tactical shot, because chances are you will get it in your game. Either you will have a chance of playing this combination, or your opponent will have a chance to play this combination, and you have to be alert not to allow it. So that's what pattern recognition, and that's why is extremely, extremely important. I can go on and on and on, and I can make a 10-hour DVD on possible tactical shots and patterns that repeat themselves all the time. But we are not going to do that. I'm giving you a clue. So it's a little tutorial of how to recognize danger, before it happens. Now we're going to go to difficult kinds of tactics and combinations. That is very hard to find exactly the same pattern that you would watched before. These are the combinations that, like very unexpected shot that doesn't belong to any specific pattern. And that's why these tactics are very, very difficult to detect. However, I'm going to do now my best to recognize these tactics, to help you detect it before it happens, so you can protect yourself against this kind of combination, or if you are on a stronger side, then maybe to perform these tactics that may decide game at once. And I will show you a few examples like this. Let's take a game between Anatoly Karpov and Veselin Topalov. Some of the top players in the world, two very top players, played in Dos Hermanos in 1994. T4, knight f3, knight f6, knight f3, c5, d5, e6. You will see how quiet will position be and how it explains all of a sudden. Knight takes d5, knight takes d5, ed, queen takes d5. This is part of the theory, and we don't want to go into details of it, so we just skip the opening part and take it for granted. e4, castle, bishop e2, d6, castle, knight c6, c3, bishop e6, queen h5, h6, rook d1, rook e8, knight d2, attempting to bring knight to c4. So far position is extremely quiet. g6, obviously taking h6 pawn is bad because white's queen is getting trapped. Queen f3, d5, queen g3, and this position could have happened and would have been normal continuation. However, I think it's a little better for white because now after queen g3, if black plays d4, knight c4 will have the pawn on h6 and hanging, and black's queen side is a little bit compromised, so this would have been better continuation. However, knight d2 was not played. I would say it would have been the best move, but bishop f4 was played. And after bishop f8, now knight d2. Well, now what happens after g6 and queen f3, d5 and queen g3. As you see now, white's bishop is on f4 and black's bishop is on f8, protecting h6 pawn nicely, and black has no problems at this point. Queen e7 was played, e takes d, bishop takes d5, and bishop f1. Very quiet position. Queen f6. Nothing indicates that there will be very soon, in a very few moves, murderous tactical shot that will end the game nearly instantly. So after knight b3, rook a d8, rook d2, bishop e6, bishop c7, attacking the rook, rook takes d2, knight takes d2, bishop f5, knight c4. White is trying to provoke some weaknesses, but black's pieces are very well placed and position is absolutely equal. After knight c4, rook e4, knight e3, bishop c8, rook d1, rook e8. Neither side can make significant progress. And after rook e8, h3, typical Karpov, very quiet move. Queen g5, queen f3, king g7, bishop f4, queen e7 was played, and after knight d5, queen e4. Let me tell you about this position. Queen e4 is played with an intention of exchanging queens and getting to drawish position. And Topalov would have been happy with a draw. He's playing with black pieces. However, this position is absolutely lost for black. There is a tactical shot that is not prepared. So black has no weaknesses, no weak points. It's very hard to predict anything dramatically bad happening for black because it was not prepared. There's no theme for the combination. But knight f6 was played, and black can resign right now. Well, it's a fork on the rook and the queen. This is very hard to predict tactical shot. And player, very good tactician, Topalov, overlooked it. And it was total shock. Obviously, it's a forking rook and a queen. Black cannot take white's queen because there is an in-between knight takes e8 check and taking the queen after that. So therefore, only other option is to take the knight. But now king is exposed, and discover check shouldn't do much because black can take white's queen. However, there is a double check. And only way not to lose black's queen, black has to take the bishop. Anywhere else king goes, black is losing the queen. After king takes, queen takes e4, king takes e4, and we have here position without queens on board where black has two extra pieces, two extra minor pieces. However, after rook e1 check and king f5, white wins the rook and the bishop, and they're going to end up with an extra exchange in the end game, and on that level it's absolutely resignable. Bishop e6 was played, rook takes f8, and after bishop takes a2, rook c8. In this position, black simply resigned. Maybe it's a little too early to resign, but position is absolutely lost. White is coming rook c7, and for a player like Karpov, this does not represent any difficulties to win this position. Now, let's go back to the critical point of this combination. Here, white went knight d5, and black almost immediately played queen e4. It's very hard to blame anyone. Well, it's very hard to blame mediocre player for not seeing knight f6, and it's very hard to blame even top players in the world for not seeing this threat. As I already mentioned, it's unprepared and it's very unexpected shot. But what triggered this shot? Triggering this shot that white plays knight f6. Black is not going to have queen takes f3 that allows knight takes e8, as I already mentioned. What triggers it that if king takes, black's king is exposed, and only the double check can do any kind of damage. But here comes the second motif, theme that white's bishop blocks protection of rook and a queen, and which forces king to take, and that's why this combination was possible. As I said, if you play game of chess for many years, maybe once or twice in your life, some tactical shot like this can happen. But then again, there are various different types of difficult shots that we can see that also may happen maybe once or twice in your life. And there is no protection against them unless you can foresee, have some super tactical vision, and you can prevent them. That's what makes game of chess so beautiful game and so well-rounded on all different shots. So now we will go to other moves. Well, of course, black should have played some move like maybe queen h4. Actually, here they already have some difficulty. They should have played maybe queen d8 is not good because of knight c7. Here, black is already in trouble. Queen e6, also knight c7. And queen h4 doesn't solve the problem because white can go g3, which forces queen h5. And this is highly unpleasant endgame with a pawn structure like this. So queen e7 move was, in this position, was a big mistake, and perhaps queen f6 would have been okay. And after knight d5, queen f5. But it's very easy to talk after the game. Queen e7 looks very normal, and obviously after knight d5, black is in trouble. And very beautiful tactical shot, which you should remember. Prior to recording this DVD, I was watching World Championship Cup games. And I've seen one of the examples that qualifies very well as absolutely unexpected tactical shot. It's like a one-move killer move. So, game happened between Gata Kamsky with white and Peter Svibler, who is now in absolutely excellent form. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6. A very well-known variation of Ruy Lopez, castling b5, and this is Arcangel variation, bishop c5, a4, and it's interesting enough to see that this variation normally Gata Kamsky, even when I was his coach, he liked to play as black, but here in this game Gata Kamsky is white. So it's psychological, may represent some difficulties. A takes B, A takes B. C3, D6. D4, bishop B6, bishop E3, and castle. Knight BD2. Very quiet development. H6, H3, rook E8, queen C2, E takes D, C takes D, and knight A5. Bishop A2, of course trying to prevent very strong light square bishop. Bishop B7, E5, knight D5, bishop B1, threatening queen H7, G6, bishop takes H6, knight C6. Black sacrificed a pawn, and they have very strong pressure on white's center. E takes D, queen takes D6, knight E4, queen b4. Very interesting position, double-edged position, but shot that came in this game was extremely unexpected. Here, white played knight f6 check. It's a very strong move, knight f6, because knight is immune. Black cannot play knight takes f6 because they get mated immediately. After queen takes g6 check, you see pawn on f7 is pinned because of the bishop on a2, and followed by mate next move. This is one shot that of course was seen by Svidler, who played king h8, and now white's queen is hanging on c2, and after king h8, knight has to take on d4, and black plays knight takes f6. Here we got very, very tense position where knight on d4 is hanging. Black's king may be in trouble at some point because bishop on a2, queen on c2, and bishop on h6 represent certain danger. However, after knight c6 that white played, you see how quickly position changed drastically. And after queen h4, all of a sudden, it's white's king that's in danger. And here, in this position, after queen h4, white played knight takes b8. This is a fatal mistake. What should have been played is bishop takes f7. This was the only continuation possible for white. Queen takes h6, bishop takes e8, rook takes e8, rook a e1. And position is better for black, who has two minor pieces for rook, but at least it's playable because of what happened in the game. And it's very, very very hard to blame white for taking the rook on b8. However, next move completely shocked white. And this move is an instant winner. Move is extremely unexpected, and based on the fact that bishops on b6 and b7 aiming white's king. There is a move like queen g3 attacking the mate on g2, and pawn on f2 is pinned. But after knight c6, black doesn't have any decisive continuation. However, the shocking move was rook e2, and after this, game is over. Queen takes e2 is not acceptable because queen g3 leads to mate. There is no knight c6, as you can see, because queen is not on c2 and black can simply take the knight. So here black is totally dead. So they played queen c3 in this position. That's the only other move. Rook takes f2. And after knight c6, well, rook cannot be taken on f2, obviously, because queen takes, and next move queen takes g2 mate. And there is no defense for white. Knight c6 to stop rook takes g2 to block light square bishop. And then simply rook takes f1. It's a double check. Rook cannot be taken because of mate. And in this position, white simply resign. Now this is very difficult to see tactical shot. Queen h4, knight takes b8, and rook e2. It has like e2 square has nothing to do with the position. It has nothing to do with the attack on the king side, but it's a simple, this move can be explained because queen g3 doesn't work, white has knight c6, blocking the diagonal. So this is simple deflection. We deflect the queen from c6 square, so white is not going to have a block with knight c6, and after queen takes c2, queen g3. That leads to a mate, and same thing happened after queen c3, same result after rook takes f2, white should resign. That's exactly what happened. This move is not completely unexpected. There is a theme, there is a motive, there is a target. And the rook e2, however, the move itself is unexpected. The pattern is sometimes pattern is known, but still move it's kind of shocking and unexpected. So this is actually a very, very good example of it. Here's one interesting example. This position happened in my game. This is not as sophisticated a tactical shot that we saw in previous two examples. And I think that this is extremely instructive. How did we get to the position, and how did we come to this tactical shot? It was very logical. Well, in this position, my opponent played fg, very strong grandmaster. I took fg. It's a long deliberation about whether I should take fg or hg, but there is a problem with knight b5 move that attacks c3 pawn that cannot be protected. On bishop d2, there is knight takes a3. Well, anyway, interesting decision fg, knight e4, bishop takes e4, rook takes e4, and rook f3. White has clear advantage in this position, and believe it or not, primarily because white has extra powerful. Well, you may find it funny, but bishop on c1 is very powerful. White is going to double and triple on f-file, and bishop on c1 is going to come into the game through a4 and bishop a3, or maybe e4 if rook moves and bishop h6. So position is very difficult for black. They played bishop c6, rook f1. They went rook e7, queen f2. They went h6. And see how it's built up for tactics. The game ends in very powerful and unpredictable tactical shot. But it was unpredictable if you just all of a sudden see this position. But I played the game and I tried to build some different tactical shots, and altogether came to very interesting cocktail of white piece activity. You will see it. Now, rook takes f8, queen takes f8, king h7, and e4. Number one, you cannot have normally very good tactics and very good combination, powerful shots and mating attacks without having your pieces active. So there is the bishop on c1 coming, hitting h6. White is threatening queen takes h6. Rook g7 was played. And now bishop f4, transferring bishop to e5. Black played queen e8. And now, how does white develop murderous attack? Bishop e5. And believe it or not, the queen is immune because rook takes f8. And now when black rook moves, there is mate on h8, unless rook moves to g8, then the same result from f7. So queen cannot be taken. So black moves rook e7. Here is immediately I got an idea. What if I do rook f7? If queen takes, that frees h8 square. But it doesn't work, because rook takes on f7, and black's queen is protected on e8. So I played e takes d, bishop takes d5. Now there is another piece guarding f7 square. However, now rook f7 works, because here is the combination of these three different themes. If queen takes, that frees h8 square, queen h8 mate. If rook takes, we simply take the queen, this also winning. And if bishop takes, bishop blocks the rook on e7, and we have queen g7 mate. Move is unexpected, but at the same time is very logical. It's a thematic, it's a pattern, and it's a lot easier to see than tactics in previous two examples. Rook f7 is absolutely murderous move, but this is instructive. That's how you build tactical threats. That's how you build threats. A lot of times you use tactics to make these threats work. And that's exactly what happened. This theme and this move can be easily detected. I don't know, for various different level players, but it's not nearly as difficult. Now, I want to show you the game with a tactical shot that I would remember maybe for as long as I live. This is, in my opinion, is most powerful tactical shot I have ever seen, and most unexpected, and most importantly, is most difficult to detect tactical shot. The game was played in 1965. It was played 46 years ago, and was played by one very well-known geniuses of the game, David Bronstein, against very strong international master from Lithuania, Vladas Mikenas. Game developed quickly. d4, knight f6, c4, d6, knight c3, c6, e4, e5, d5, bishop e7, bishop e2. Bronstein is playing black, castle, knight f3, knight a6, castle for white, bishop d7, knight e1. It's very positional and very quiet game for now. Queen c8, knight d3. Idea of queen c8 was to bring the bishop on b6, the passive bishop bring on active position. Bishop d8, f4 was played by Mikenas. C takes d, c takes d, and now knight c5, f takes e, knight f takes e4, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, and this position does look good for white. Well, after bishop e3, bishop b6 was played. That's how black exchanged their bad dark square bishop. Bishop takes b6. Up to this date, by number of relatively experienced players, well, I should say older players, who are my age, or maybe a little younger even, when they were chess players in 1965, they remember this game and they said they have the same opinion about the game, that they will never forget for as long as they live. This is most incredible shot. Rook f4, knight c5, e takes d, knight takes d3, queen takes d3. Nothing indicates anything unusual happening. Queen c5, king h1, queen takes d6, rook h4, attacking mate on h7, h6, a3, rook f to e8, bishop f3, queen e5, and in this position McKenna's played a rook b4 move, attacking b6 pawn. Queen e1 doesn't do much because of queen f1, and it's very hard to foresee for what would happen in this position. After black's next move, McKenna's sat for several minutes looking at the position. He knew that he is dead lost, but he couldn't believe his eyes, because as experienced player as he was, he has never seen anything like this. As experienced player as I am, I have never seen anything like this, ever. After next move, white immediately resigned. Rook takes a3. This is the most shocking move maybe in the history of game of chess. You see, this rook on a3 can be taken 3 different ways. However, every one of them leads to complete destruction. Well, anyway, white takes the rook, they get mated. Queen takes a3 leads to queen e1 with a mate next move. Pawn takes a3 also leads to a mate after queen takes a1, rook b1, and rook e1. This is a mate. And rook takes a3 leads to a mate. Okay, if black doesn't, so we determined that rook cannot be taken, then what to do? The queen is hanging, and mate is hanging. If queen goes back, that leads to a mate as well. Rook takes a1, queen takes a1, and queen e1. So after rook a3, white loses at least whole queen without a possibility of getting even one pawn for it. This is most amazing and unbelievable tactical shot I have ever seen. Can you predict this? And if we said that we can justify and explain any combination, of course, now retroactively we can explain. It's the idea of back rank mate plus pin the pawn and plus double attack. Well, those teams together, they have never worked together. And rook a3 is the move that can be overlooked by any human being. For computers, rook takes a3 is just as normal to see as, for example, in this position, rook d8. Computers think differently, and that's why they are not humans. But rook takes a3 for a human is absolutely shocked. McKenna said after the game, he has never gotten from any of his wins in his career, he has never got as much satisfaction as he got from this, from the loss of this game. As you see, rook takes a3 is immediate, requires immediate resignation for white. Truly unbelievable shot. And if I said there is one combination that I cannot explain, I cannot even do analysis of this combination. I can show you what happened, but to analyze how it works, it's truly amazing and most beautiful move I've ever seen. Here I want to show you a couple of my games that tactics are not super hard and very difficult, but they are very instructive. So you can see the reasons and points and causes of the combination, why that work. That should help you, that should guide you through similar types of tactics that are based on some very important points. So the game I played with black against the Scandinavian Grandmaster, this is the first game, Ferdinand Hellers. I've shown this game on one of my previous DVDs as part of the opening repertoire or anything, but I did not emphasize on tactics. I emphasized on the opening. I will do exactly the opposite now. I will skip the opening because it's not to our interest and get to the tactics. D4, knight takes D5, knight F3, it's a center counter opening, bishop G4, bishop E2, knight C6, C4, knight B6, D5, bishop takes F3, bishop takes F3, knight E5. This opening had, in my career, directly and indirectly happened several times. A couple of times, 2 or 3 times, I played myself against strong player. I was coach of Gata Kamsky. He played the same exact opening against Anand in a match, and he won with black. So anyway, after knight E5, bishop E2, C6, of course, pawn on C4 is immune because black simply loses a knight after queen A4 check. So after bishop E2, C6 was played, and position gets interesting and unusual. After queen D4, attacking the knight, knight has to go to G6, knight C3, E5. We're going to go quickly through this part of the game. Queen E4, C takes D, C takes D, bishop D6, bishop B5 check, knight D7, and white castled. After castling, black castled, queen F5, knight C5, B4, knight A6, A3, knight E7, queen must retreat, queen H3, knight C7, bishop D3, and F5. Bishop G5, E4. Nothing indicates that there will be any serious combination. Also, D5 pawn obviously cannot be taken, so E4 was played. And after E4, bishop has to retreat, and there is no good square for d3 bishop to retreat, so he went to c4. Now h6, bishop d2, knight g6. You see black's piece is now getting very active. Knight goes to e5, and they're going to have good position. f3, ef, gf, and here black has big advantage. I played here queen f6, and my opponent made a losing move. After queen f6, well, it didn't look like losing move at once. So there is a threat of queen d4 check, attacking most of white's pieces. So knight e2 was played, and now after b5, the idea of move b5 to chase the bishop away. Now, if bishop chooses to go to d3, then we're going to have knight e5 move, bringing piece in its center with the tempo, attacking bishop on d3. If bishop goes to b3, then queen b2 wins the game, attacking two bishops and indirectly also the knight on e2. So my opponent he expected this move and quickly played bishop c3. Now, let me tell you something about it. This position is totally lost for white. There is a forced win for black, and the tactical shot. You see that bishop on c3 protected by knight. The other bishop is hanging. It's like white's pieces are on the edge. Queen g5 move doesn't do the job because king is simply going to move to h1, and if we take that bishop, then there is a rook g1 attacking the queen, and later on taking the knight on g6, unless black chooses queen h4, which is also not good, because after rook takes g7, white has big advantage, probably winning. So this is not good. And the same thing will happen on knight f4, by the way. Then rook takes g5, and after knight takes h3, rook takes g7. So he cleverly thought that bishop c3 will give him a reasonable game. If I have to go to f7, well, at least white is out of immediate danger. But there is a move, tactical shot, knight f4, that ends the game. My opponent resigned in two moves, actually next move. So what happened after knight f4, what happens is, if white takes knight, all white's pieces are on pre. I take the bishop on c3, and now the bishop is hanging, the knight is hanging, and white is totally lost. What else to do? So if they take the queen, then I'll take the queen on h3 with a check, and after king g2, you see that both white bishops are hanging. So we take one bishop, either one, and next move we take the other one if white takes the knight on h3. That loses two for white. So suppose queen moves. So we say queen moves, queen can only move to one square, which is g3. And that's what happened in the game. Now I could have played knight takes e2, which would have won, most likely. Well, actually, it would have won, not most likely. But bishop can take the queen. Bishop takes f6, and what we can win is a pawn by taking on h2. there is no immediate killer win. But there's a second tactical shot that is coming based on vulnerable position of queen and all white's minor pieces. That's how you determine that you have to have a winning continuation here. You have to have it because too many white's pieces are hanging, and they are barely hanging on a thin thread. So the winning move is b takes c, which forced my opponent's resignation. You see, we eliminated the bishop that protects the knight on e2. And in a best case scenario, white is going to end up with a piece down, which makes the game resignable. Now, if knight takes knight, queen takes bishop, that wins immediately. If bishop takes queen, knight takes knight check, taking the queen on g3, and black is going to have two extra pieces. And there is no third option here. So, well, maybe third option, queen takes f4, but then we win easily with bishop takes f4. And after bishop takes f6, you see, if we take bishop, white is going to take on f4. So we have in-between check that wins the game right away. After rook takes f6, the game is over. Tactics are not very difficult, but they are very thematic. This is not unusual shot. This is not like an unprepared, shocking move. But all these tactics based on overloading of white pieces, beginning with the knight f4 move. Now, knight on e2 is protecting f4 square and also protecting the bishop on c3. Bishop on c4 is hanging. Very shaky piece position. You, in this type of position, first thing you do, you look for a tactical shot. You look for tactical shot. And I believed when I went to this, if something like this happened, all white's piece position is very artificial and unstable. And I believe there will be tactical shot. It's not a difficult tactical shot, but it's very important and very, very decisive. And after queen g3, second tactical shot. There are two simple tactical shots that end the game. Very instructive, in my opinion. Now, let's look at the second game. This game was played against another grandmaster from Philippines, quite famous grandmaster, Eugene Torre. This game was played in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, in 1978, quite a few years ago. And I was white. Game started very quietly with knight f3, c5, c4, g6. I showed this game too before, but from different standpoint to show some strategical parts of this game. Here we go to tactics and explaining tactics. That's what I basically like to do on this DVD, to explain tactics. It's like a tactic tutorial. So d4, bishop g7, e4, knight c6, d5, knight d4, knight takes d4, c takes d. This is rather unusual opening. I've seen games played with it, and I had some pretty good idea. I was working on chess a lot there, and I had one pretty good idea which I played in this game. Knight a3, queen b6 to protect this d6 pawn in advance. After queen b6, bishop d3, and d6. Well, here is the turning point in this position. Of course, white can simply castle and continue playing quietly knight c2, but I thought that actually my tutors from beginning of my chess career, they taught me never do something that is contradicting the basic principles. Well, such as things that developing queen early, playing with the same minor piece twice, never do that. It's not good. And if your opponent does it, try to punish him. And try to punish him is what was motivating me here. And after d6, I went c5. Black absolutely must take on c5, one way or the other, with a pawn or with a queen. If black takes it with a pawn, then we can go bishop b5 check. And after king f8, simply castle. So now black needs another at least 2 or 3 moves to castle by hand, because king on f8 is terrible. And we can retreat the bishop back to d3, go knight c4 and f4, trying to develop in quick attack. I thought that I have an obligation to punish black, and I did like c5 idea very much. Queen took, however. Bishop b5 check, king f8, castle, knight f6, bishop d3. So what we did, we simply sacrificed pawn, and now queen is vulnerable, king is terribly placed. I'm sure white has enough compensation for a pawn. Knight g4, knight c4, knight e5, knights were exchanged, bishop check. Well, bishop check almost, it's strictly because not to let black play king g7 and solve the problem of the king. So bishop h6 check, bishop g7, queen d2. Now black still has the same problem, what to do with the king. And after queen b6, when I analyzed this game previously on DVD, I gave 2 exclamation marks to a4 move. And I still would do that. It's a very powerful move, because what white wants to do is simply, on a move like this, they want to go a5 and after queen d8, maybe even simply take and have a big advantage after getting the pawn back on d4. Well, my opponent played a5, and now after bishop b5, he practically has no square to develop the light square bishop. And he played e5. Here comes the tactical part, and how do we find a combination here? You can almost never find any combination without getting deep into positional understanding, what you have in the understanding of position. Well, some tactical shots are way too obvious. I'm not talking about them. The hidden combination, which is here, is very easy to find if you follow certain steps. Black has no way of solving problem of bishop on c8. Obviously, by playing e5, they want to go f6, then king f7, and somehow untie the rook on h8. But position is so bad that we can win it almost in a matter of couple of moves. There is no shot here, but we preparing the shot. Queen g5. Now, after queen g5, f6 is not possible because queen takes. But most importantly, for example, black plays queen c7. We have this deadly move that ends the game on the spot. So black has to play king g8. But now, the other tactical shot here is a helplessness, the same theme. Theme is the same. Helplessness, complete helplessness of black's minor pieces, or black's any pieces. So if we pick a target here, some square, we can almost get it easily. And here, instead of taking on g7 and playing queen e7, which, by the way, would do nothing at all, there is a move that wins the game immediately. You see the f7 square. After queen e7, you see queen cannot get back into the game, black queen. Black rook cannot get in the game. King has no moves. It's like an absolute helplessness. You see what's coming, and there is nothing you can do. The bishop, taking this bishop, dark square bishop is irrelevant because the key move is bishop e8 and mate on f7, and nothing can stop it. And in this position, well, mate is inevitable. So pawn takes on e6, mate is inevitable. My opponent made one more move and resigned. He played bishop d7 just to stop bishop e8. And then, as I said, attack and powerful tactical shot doesn't always end, mating attack doesn't always end with a mate. It may end with a winning big material or getting big advantage some other way. But here simply bishop takes g7, and after king takes g7, we can win a piece. And with a piece down, on any reasonable level, people resign. And this was tactical shot without sacrificing. Queen e7. Well, it's sacrificing the bishop, but you see, it shows helplessness of black's position. And in this position, unless you realize that your opponent's pieces are absolutely hopeless and helpless, you will never find queen g5 move. The other possible option would have been bishop takes g7, king takes g7, and f4. But then rook is in the game, and black has some hope of surviving. Well, f6, maybe, and on queen f2, maybe rook f8. But here, you have to keep black's pieces boxed. And after queen g5, there is absolutely no defense. It's a very pitiful display of black's pieces mobility. Not one piece can come even close. So when I said here, well, here, for example, yeah, queen f6 is good. Well, which maybe rook g8 will give some protection, temporary protection to black. But what would you do against f4? Now, on top of everything, not one piece black can defend the position, and rook on f1 opens. Black's position is totally hopeless. And this is a good, it's not difficult. Queen g5 is very easy move to find. What is difficult in this position, well, I don't know if it is difficult, I'm not so sure about it, that to realize how hopeless every one of black's pieces is. Every one of them. And that's what makes Queen G5 and end in 2-3 moves make possible. This is absolutely hopeless. I think it's very good display of the power of activity and helplessness of passivity. So I never thought, as I said in the beginning of the DVD, that there is a possibility of explaining tactics. Some tactics are very easy to explain, but every tactical shot, with exception of maybe 1 out of 1,000, that can be justified. And if you get the principles which we use to justify the tactics properly, it's going to make your finding these shots much, much easier. And I don't need to explain it to you how important the tactics are. They decide the game in huge majority of the games you play. Even on high level, you don't see, on a very high level, you don't see that many tactics. You know why? Because they see all these tactics. And if it's favorable for one of the sides, the other side bypasses these tactics. But on little lower level, they happen very, very frequently. So I hope you learned something that I explained about the basis for tactics on this DVD, and I hope it will help in your future career. Thank you very, very much.